Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, Monday, August 21st. If you're joining me for the first time, first of all, welcome in. This is kind of the format that I do take. Typically, we go over a recap of yesterday's picks, but since it's Monday, haven't had a video since Friday. Speaking of Friday's video, I want to apologize for that since it was lagging quite a bit and killed kind of the audio quality just overall. So do apologize for anyone that did watch that. So typically we got the recap. After that, go over to the weather report, talk about any potential weather spots for today's games in general. Then after that, we go over to FanDuel, talk about my core picks for today. So it's going to be one pitcher, four hitters. So going to be ones that stand out to me based on past history in the respective matchup, a combination of current history, or kind of like a gut feeling just based on the day. So that's kind of where that's at. And then last but not least, after that, we go over to the YouTube community tab, the cheat sheet, which is up on Facebook, it's up on Twitter, and it's up on the YouTube community tab. That cheat sheet is 100% free. I'm going to talk about the top GPP stacks over there for tonight's slate. Looks like we got Johnson Daily Sports in here with a comment. He said, "My guy, appreciate you checking out once again. Definitely do appreciate each and every one checking today's live stream out, or whether you're watching live or on replay. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to drop them in the live chat. If you're watching live, if you're watching on replay, leave it as a comment and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible." But like I said, since we have not had a video since Friday, we'll be doing the weather report as the first part. Looks like some pretty good weather spots for today. The only real spot that we have is down in Oakland, 20% chance of precipitation. Obviously, there was Hurricane Hillary going through California, leaving a lot of rain down there. So hopefully everybody in that area is doing pretty well. But at this point in time, does not look like any major weather spots. If anything does change throughout the day, we'll leave it down in the comments as an update. But with that being said, we're going to stop sharing this screen. We'll get over to FanDuel, talk about those core picks for today. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting day. Probably a day that looks better to stack and kind of play the stack game for GPPs and everything else like that than to try to pick out the guys that have the best history in the past. So a little bit tougher for core picks, but the ones that I do have for today, we're going to have Blake Snell at $10,600. Technically, FanDuel does not have him listed as the starter, but ESPN, RotoWire, and Roster Resource all have him listed as the starter for today. FanDuel, for whatever reason, still has Michael Wacha, but as long as Blake Snell is starting today, he looks pretty good. Has some pretty decent history versus Miami in the past. The only guys that have hit him all right were Jorge Soler and Luis Arraez, and even that's kind of hit or miss at that. So looks like a pretty strong play today. He had 43 points versus Miami earlier this season, so looks like another strong play. Obviously, he's been doing really well as of late, a potential Cy Young candidate at this point in time. So if you want to look at what he's done in the season in totality, we got 2.65 ERA, averaging about 37 fantasy points per game at 10,600, 10 wins. So some pretty good numbers there. Obviously, the only thing that's really drug him down somewhat throughout the season have been the walks, and especially the starts where he gets too many walks going there, which has kind of been something that's been a thing throughout his career, though. Then we're going to move down to our first base / catcher position. So it's going to be Gabriel Moreno today. So he's actually been hitting the ball really well since he came back from the injured list. He's only $2,200. So kind of an interesting pay down option here. 6.8 fantasy points per game on the season. He's got 276 average, 5 home runs, 35 RBIs. And he goes against Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery's pitched extremely well since he's been with Texas, but was not too good against Arizona earlier this season. Gabriel Moreno is 4-for-4 with 1 home run versus him. So like that upside tonight, he has at least 1 hit in 5 out of his last 6 games. Like I said, he's done really well since he's come back from the injured list. So do like Gabriel Moreno as a potential pay down option tonight. If you want to go against Jordan Montgomery and build out a Diamondback stacks, feel right ahead to do so. But like I said, Montgomery's pitched really well since he's been with the Rangers, but he did struggle quite a bit in his one start versus Arizona earlier this season. Then we're going to keep moving down. We got Jake Cronenworth. You could play him at second base. You could also play him at first base if you really wanted to as well. $2,800, averaging just over 8.5 fantasy points per game on the season. Only 230 average, 10 home runs, 48 RBIs. Not the greatest season for him, but we kind of in this conundrum where we don't know exactly who's starting for Miami tonight. It might be Johnny Cueto, it might be Ryan Weathers. If it's Cueto, he's 2-for-6 with 1 home run versus him. If it's Ryan Weathers, he doesn't have history versus him because he was his former teammate. So really hasn't made too many appearances outside of San Diego, minus his 1 lone appearance with Miami earlier this season. So Cronenworth looks like a pretty decent option. $300, reasonable value. He's been a little bit hit or miss as of late. He's 2-for-4 yesterday, a couple over games in there. Had a 3-game hitting streak in there, kind of been hit or miss, like I said. I like the Padres tonight either way, and I think he's a pretty cheap way of getting to them overall. Then we're going to move down to third base, and third base has probably the most options in totality on this slate. Austin Riley's in play, Nolan Arenado's in play, Rafael Devers is in play. I'm trying to Manny Machado's in play too, especially if Johnny Cueto ends up being the starter since he's got 2 home runs versus him in his career. So we're talking to like 4 high-end third basemen at this point in time, maybe even 5. So really depending on what stack you're playing, that's probably going to ultimately play off in which third baseman you ultimately end up choosing for your lineup. So I do like Rafael Devers here. He's 2 for 6 with 1 home run versus Christian Javier. Javier has not been really good. Like probably his last 8 starts, there's been like 1 good start in there. So do like the upside that he does present. And Rafael Devers is on a modest 4-game hitting streak at this point in time, 274 average, 29 home runs, 85 RBIs, average about 12 fantasy points per game. He's up to $3,700 now, which, you know, when he's hitting the ball well, is not a bad price tag. But if he's not hitting the ball quite as well, a little bit more expensive. But like I said, that 4-game hitting streak, he's got 3 hits in his past 3 games, or he's had at least 3 hits in his past 3 games. So really strong upside there. He's homered in 3 out of his last 4 games. So pretty strong looking option for tonight's slate overall. Do like the Red Sox as a potential stack. I do not have them listed in my cheat sheet. They are on my Patreon notes though. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to check that out. Some hitter versus pitcher matchups, additional stacks, whether or not I would consider pitchers in play and avoid or risky play overall. But the last hitter that we do have for today is Tommy Edman. You can play him at second base, shortstop, or outfield. I did ultimately end up putting him in the outfield just because we didn't have anybody else for the core plays in the outfield at this point in time. Do like to throw at least 1 outfielder out there. Some days it's obviously 2. But with Tommy Edman, he's $2,900. You're averaging just over 9 fantasy points per game, about a 250 average, 11 home runs, 38 RBIs, a guy that can steal base here and there as well. Been doing pretty well as of late. Could hit towards the top of the lineup today against the lefty Bailey Falter, although it looks like somebody might open ahead of him. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But do like Tommy Edman, regardless if he is at the top of the lineup, bottom of the lineup, not too worried there. Over 2 versus Bailey Falter in his career, not too worried about that though. And he has at least 1 hit in 9 out of his last 11 games. So some pretty decent upside there. If you're building out some Cardinals stacks, going to look like a pretty interesting option. Playing him, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt all together. Even Taylor O'Neill there if he ends up getting the start as well. But with that being said, if you ultimately end up going with the 5 players that I do have listed here, give me 1 second, you'll end up with $12,800 remaining, $3,200 per player to spend. So a good amount of money. Do apologize there. Nose is itching and everything, sneezing a lot this morning. So I do apologize for that. But if you go with them, $3,200 per player remaining. So whether you want to pay up for a couple guys, pay down for a couple guys, or make a little bit more balanced approach, that's definitely something that's viable tonight. Mix and match quite a bit. Sorry about that. So mix and match quite a bit as always. Definitely something to consider for GPPs. But with that being said, we're going to stop sharing this. We'll go over to that YouTube community tab and get over to the cheat sheet and the top GPP stacks for today overall. So it looks like it's taking a minute to load here. So bear with me as we get talking through this. So the first team we have is the team that I kind of already talked about quite a bit. So it's going to be the Cardinals going against the Pittsburgh Pirates and Bailey Falter today. So Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado both have good history versus him. Don't mind Tommy Edman. Don't mind Tyler O'Neill. A couple other guys you can mix and match in there. Do like the Cardinals upside quite a bit today. And then we have the Seattle Mariners. They're going against Tuki Toussaint. Not a lot of history there versus him in the past, but he is a guy that has been known to walk batters, give up some runs here and there, get some strikeouts though, but do like the Mariners today. Threw a couple of them in my cheat sheet, Julio Rodriguez and Eugenio Suarez. Suarez, I will apologize, in the cheat sheet is supposed to be $2,800. Did not change that from $2,400. And then the Padres going against Johnny Cueto or Ryan Weathers. Looks like a pretty good matchup. They have pretty good history versus Johnny Cueto if it's ended up being him. If it's Ryan Weathers, hasn't been too great in his young career. He is a former Padre, so there's not really history there except for like Juan Soto in this matchup, who's 2 for 3 versus him. And then we have the Texas Rangers going against Slade Ciccone for the Arizona Diamondbacks, making his 4th career appearance. So it looks like a pretty favorable matchup for a pretty good lineup overall. But that's kind of what I got in terms of the MLB DFS core picks for today, in terms of the top GPP stacks, the weather report, and everything else like that. If you do have any additional questions related to MLB DFS for tonight's slate, be sure to drop them down in the comments as always, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. We'll have any other potential weather updates down there as well as the starting lineups as they do come out throughout the day. And then with that being said, And then with that being said, also very interested in who your favorite play is for today. Be sure to let me know. Very interested whether it is somebody that was in my core 5 picks, whether it's someone that's in my top GPP stacks, or whether it's a completely different player you guys think I missed. Definitely interested in hearing who that is for you. If you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we got MLB DFS Monday through Friday. We got CFL DFS once a week, typically on Wednesdays. And then the NFL season's coming right around the corner. So we'll be doing some content for that as well, especially from the DFS side as we get into the regular season. But with that being said, definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. Hopefully each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.